What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for your NFL Week 18. The first ever NFL Week 18 picks. The first ever Week 18 in NFL history is here. It is the final regular season week of this NFL season. There are games that will decide the fate of your favorite team. There are games that will determine your playoff matchup. And there are many games that will decide and determine the momentum that these teams enter the playoffs with. We are the final step, that much closer to the NFL playoffs, and I'm here to give you my thoughts, my opinion, and my breakdown of every matchup for Week 18 of the 2021 NFL season. So before I get started, guys, you know your job. You know it. You know what you gotta do. And what you gotta do is you gotta Gronk spike that like button. Don't forget to Gronk spike the notification bell for the latest upload and the latest live stream. You can also, if you are new and watching this after the fact, you can subscribe to the channel if you like. That would be very nice. And guys, what I'll say about this is, if you enjoy NFL picks and these previews every week on Wednesday night, typically at around 9 Eastern time, if you enjoy the regular season breakdowns, you will love the playoff breakdowns because I go deeper than any other channel here on YouTube, and I'm not even trying to pat myself on the back. Playoffs, I go hard. I take it to the next level. I don't just skate by. I don't just glide in the playoffs. When it's the playoffs, we lock in. We get deep. We get gritty. We get dirty. And we break down the matchups. So if you're not already subscribed, and maybe you're somebody that just watches the channel all the time, but you're not subscribed, you're the worst kind of person. I'm just going to be honest. Subscribe to the channel. All right. Let's get rolling, though, with some picks. And you guys know on social media, if you would like to follow and support the channel, you can. At TheBottomLineView on Instagram and at Mitch Milani on Twitter. Let's say hello to the people in the chat. I have not checked the comments yet. What's up, Memorabilia? How you doing, Tessa? She says, why are the 49ers in your last stream? Why are the 49ers better than us? We beat them 2 times. Tessa, I broke down the power rankings, and the power rankings, I ranked all the teams remaining in the playoffs, and the Seattle Seahawks are out. 49ers are not. Zelda, what's going on? Hugo, he says, subscribe. This is hands down the best NFL channel. Thank you, Hugo. I appreciate that. Natasha, what's up? Thank you, Natasha. I appreciate that. Jimmy, Yvonne, what's up? Isaac, how you doing? He says he finally saw No Way Home. Let me know what you thought. Give me your review in the comments. Dylan, what's up? Dylan, how you doing, bro? All right, so we are here for our Week 18 picks. Derek Jones, who is apparently a sports fan, has changed his name in the chat, which is just going to throw me off. All right, so now that we're ready, shout out to Isaac. I'll give Isaac this one real quick.
Pizza time.
All right, let's get rolling. Starting off with the first game. The first game is the Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC champs for the last two seasons. The Kansas City Chiefs, they play their final regular season game. They're looking to enter the playoffs on a high note. They are looking to end their regular season on a high note after falling to the Cincinnati Bengals last week. This game is important because Kansas City, if they win the game, Kansas City confirms that they are the 2 seed. They still have a chance at the 1 seed, although they'll need help from the Houston Texans. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they win, they confirm the 2 seed, and they get momentum to enter the playoffs. That's why this game is important. Kansas City will be fighting to win this game. On the other hand, Denver, they are out. Denver 100% cannot make the playoffs, but they're not a team that's just going to lay down and have an easy game here for Kansas City to steamroll them. They are a division rival. They're a team that has played Kansas City at least tough on the defensive side of the football under Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio is a coach with rumors to be fired at the end of the season. So that being said, I think he's going to try to put forth his best effort and try to get his players to fight for him in this game. So there are some things that are interesting about the game. I think mostly what I'm looking for in this game is how Kansas City performs entering the playoffs. And this game to me has the vibes of Kansas City getting right. Kansas City trying to dot their I's, cross their T's, and get ready for the playoff run. And overall, I see a pretty easy Kansas City victory here. I'm going to go 27-10. I think it's much easier if they are facing Drew Lock. I think if it is Teddy Bridgewater, that is where I get a little bit scared of potentially trusting the Chiefs to cover. That's what I'll say. I think if it is Drew Lock, I think the Chiefs probably cover. I think if it is Teddy Bridgewater, I think that the Broncos might cover, but it's kind of borderline. I'm probably not going to be betting on this game, but what I've seen from recent history within this rivalry is that the Chiefs' defense kind of owns the Broncos offensively. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the lackluster quarterback play that the Broncos have been getting for the last couple of years. But on top of that, I just think Spagnuolo has a really good handle of what Shermer and company are attacking them with. And really, the Broncos can never get anything going offensively, especially when it comes to converting in the red zone or even on third downs. I think overall, this is a game that the Chiefs' defense gets back on track after a lackluster performance. I think Spagnuolo definitely knows that his unit has to be better. I think they will be better in this game entering the playoffs. And this is just a momentum, set a statement type of game for the Chiefs. I think I liked what I saw from their offense in the game versus the Bengals. It's just unfortunate that they came up on the losing end. But Mahomes seems to be fairly confident right now, playing fairly well. And obviously Kelsey and Hill are healthy, which are key. The offensive line's also protecting him. I don't see the Broncos getting a ton of pressure in this game. I think the Chiefs should put up enough points to securely, comfortably win. But I think it's mostly about the defense that handles the Broncos offensively that wins them this game. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs 27-10. If I had to go on either side of who I'm betting on the spread, I would lean towards the Chiefs, but this isn't probably one that I'm going out of my way to bet. The next game, and by the way, guys, these two first games are on Saturday. By the way, this is a game that's on Saturday. It is not on Sunday. These games are on Saturday. There is no Thursday game this week, just in case you guys didn't know that. So, yeah, just so you're aware, there are no Thursday games. These two games are on Saturday, and then the rest of the games are on Sunday. There is no Monday Night Football game. The final Monday Night Football game was last week. Okay, so the Saturday night game is the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. From what I've heard, Philadelphia is not going to be playing anybody in this game, or at least some of their main starters. They're also dealing with a breakout in their facility. A lot of players probably sit because of that. And then on top of it, I feel that Dallas all the reports suggest that they're going to play to win the game. That's exactly what Mike McCarthy and company have said. Jerry Jones said that, and when Jerry Jones says it, it means it's true, because what Jerry Jones says is what the Cowboys are going to do, ultimately. I don't care what the coach says. I don't care what Dak says. I don't care what the fans say. Jerry Jones says it. It matters. Philadelphia, on the other hand, like I said, I wouldn't expect to see Jalen Hurts in this game. I think this will be Gardner Minshew. I think that they're going to have a lot of backups in there. And I think overall that's going to lead to Dallas probably pretty comfortably winning the game. Not sure what the score would be if both teams actually treated this as a playoff atmosphere, as a playoff game. I would almost be tempted to say that this would be a very close game. Even with Philadelphia at home, it could sway towards the Eagles, the way that the Cowboys offense has been playing. But I think ultimately, given the intention of both teams early in the week, I think that the Cowboys are going to win pretty easily. Now, I will say, I don't think there's a huge difference between Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew. I think that Jalen Hurts is the better player, the more dynamic player, but I think Minshew is a very competent quarterback, and I think he is starting quality. In terms of the rest of the roster, though, with Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, Dallas Goedert, those potential guys not playing, I think it makes sense for Dallas to put up into the 30s, and then, Philly probably hangs around or maybe even gets a score at the end of the game to make it look a little bit closer. But I think Dallas is looking to go into the playoffs after a bad performance versus the Cardinals, get that bad taste out of their mouth. And what I've really realized about Dallas over many years with Dak Prescott, this is a momentum team. This team rides momentum, and this team's all about momentum. When they're on a streak, they're really, really good. And when they're kind of down in the dumps, they struggle to get out of it. So we'll see how they respond to that loss versus Arizona. I got the Cowboys here to win and to cover. Next. Big game. Big game. We've got the New England Patriots. This is the game that I will be streaming. I'll be back on the Patriot stream train. And by the way, for the playoffs, guys, I'm going to try to stream as many games as possible. The wild card weekend, I'm going to try to do every game if I can. The wild card weekend, so from what I've heard, the wild card weekend is going to have 2 games on Saturday instead of 3. I heard that one game might be on Monday night, which I think is weird because, honestly, I preferred the schedule last year where it was like 3 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday. But Peter King floated out the concept or the idea that the Patriots would be playing, or I think he threw out the possibility of New England Buffalo on Monday night. But regardless of who's playing, he said that it would be 2 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, and 1 game on Monday, which I think is interesting. Regardless of that, this is a big game, I think, for the Patriots. The game doesn't really matter for Miami. It would be nice for Miami to go out on a winning note, and obviously they're going to play all their players. They're going to treat it as their last game to go out on a high note. And Miami has been a team that's been really good at the end of the year. They very much disappointed me the way that they performed last week versus Tennessee. They got thoroughly dominated on both sides of the football. Tua looked back down to earth, like Tua turned the ball over, and we'll see how he looks versus the New England Patriots this week. I think these 2 games, I know it's kind of weird to say given that Tua was playing well throughout that stretch, but I think the 2 games versus the Titans and the Patriots here at the end of this season are going to decide whether the Dolphins stay with Tua or move on from Tua in the future. I do personally believe that, because I think if they don't see enough on tape from these 2 games, they're going to look to go elsewhere at the quarterback position. I do believe that, because there were rumors before the season and things like that. And I think Brian Flores, knowing Mike Vrabel, respecting Bill Belichick's defenses, and then looking at the tape to see if Tua has what it takes to be his starter, I think that will be a big indication to him of whether he wants to ride with this guy at quarterback and whether the GM wants to ride with Tua moving forward. But that's just my opinion. Now, in terms of the game, I think that it should be competitive. New England traditionally has struggled in Miami, And that is why I think if New England wins this game and wins it impressively, I think it would be very impressive for New England entering the playoffs. And I honestly think it would be a huge momentum boost for them if they're able to win this game comfortably. If they just win the game, I think it's a solid win nonetheless. But I think that a comfortable win would be a huge spark to the Patriots, and I would be very confident entering the playoffs because they just seem to struggle in Miami no matter how good their team has been over the years. Whether it's been the 04 team, the 2014 team, or any of the Super Bowl teams, they have seemed to struggle in Miami. Now, in terms of the matchups, I do think the Patriots obviously are the better team. They're the team in the playoffs. Miami is a very similar team, though, and they've both constructed their rosters very similarly. I think it's going to be tough on the Dolphins to consistently move the ball on New England. I think there's enough tape out there on Tua on how to kind of force him into playing the style that he doesn't want to play, which is often forcing him to throw the ball down the field and trying to take away all the underneath and tackling well and taking away the RPOs and quick things like that. And I think that's what New England's going to be on. I hope that New England continues to play a lot of disguise coverages and zone coverages because that is what they've been best at. I believe they rank at the top of the league in terms of their effectiveness in zone coverage this year. So I'd like to see that continue into the playoffs. Offensively, I thought Tennessee showed a way that New England could exploit Miami in terms of running the ball on the Dolphins, and I think we could see that again. And honestly, I thought New England's offense played pretty well in that first matchup, and they want to probably, what's the word? But they probably want to have revenge, so to speak, from that first game where they kind of fumbled the game away, quite literally. They fumbled the game away. Damian Harris fumbled the game away. So I think in a way, New England wants this game bad to put that first game behind them and then prove that they're a much better team now than they were in September. And that's a big Bill Belichick thing. It actually kind of reminds me, sorry, I'm going on a Patriots fan tangent as I always do, but it reminds me of watching the 2003 Tom Brady. I've been watching the Tom Brady doc, right, on ESPN. And on the 2003 edition, they played the Bills in the first game and they played the Bills in the last game. And in the first game, they beat them they lost to them 31-0 with Drew Bledsoe and Lawyer Malloy. And then they beat them 31-0 in the last game of the season. So I think this has kind of similar vibes to that one, where if New England could turn around the result of the first week this time, I think that would be big for them from a momentum standpoint versus a rival. So ultimately, what do I think is going to happen in the game? I think that the Patriots will win the game, but I do think it will be close and defensive. I think it's going to be 24-17 Patriots. And I think Mac Jones has a solid game, but I think they mostly rely on Stevenson. They mostly rely on Damian Harris to run the ball and get pressure on Tua, and their defense has a big day here entering the playoffs. And I think that would be a nice victory for us Patriots fans moving into the playoffs. In terms of the opponent, we'll talk about that in a second because it would be very, very interesting. New England still has an opportunity actually to win the division and an opportunity even at the number 1 seed. Now, it would take a lot for New England to get the number 1 seed. Like, a bunch of the teams in front of them have to lose, but it's still a possibility. In terms of the division, all that needs to happen is Buffalo needs to lose to the Jets and New England needs to win. So it's not overly complicated, but it is asking a bad team to beat a good team, which is a lot. And then with the opponent, we're going to get to that in a second. But yeah, I think New England wins the game. I think they win a probably defensive football game. I do have respect for Miami's defense, but I just think New England's a more talented team, especially at the line of scrimmage, and I think that's where they win this game. I would say, and this is more going into the playoffs, I've liked the vibes surrounding the press conferences with Patriot players, talking about what needs to happen for them. And I know Dante Hightower said that they got to play a physical brand of football. So if you're a Patriots fan, look out for that. I think that's definitely what they want to get into entering the playoffs. That state of mind. All right. Next up, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know what you guys are reacting to in the chat. All right. So the next matchup is the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think this game's really interesting. Baltimore is favored by 5.5. The game does matter, but not really. It matters because both teams have a chance to make the playoffs. It's just very slim. So I believe both teams, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's something rough like this where both teams basically have to win this game. They've got to hope that the Colts lose to the Jags, which is tough, and they've got to have the Raiders win, I think. They've got to have the Raiders beat the Chargers. Now, maybe that's the Steelers, and maybe it's the opposite for the Ravens, because the Ravens did beat the Chargers. I'm not exactly sure on that, but it's something similar to that. There's a couple things that have to happen for both teams in order to get to the playoffs. The Steelers kept their hopes alive with a win over the Browns on Monday Night Football in Big Ben's last game at Heinz Field, which was quite obvious by the emotional ending there. And I do wonder how that impacts this game, because it's going to be tough to have that whole emotional setting, that emotional game, and then turn around the next week and then not act like your season already ended. I know that's a weird thing because that doesn't really happen often, but I just feel like there was such an emotional spike for that Steelers game versus the Browns that it's going to be very hard for Pittsburgh to get to the same level in this game versus Baltimore on the road in Baltimore. That game had so much emotion in it with the Big Ben last game at Heinz Field, playing a division rival in Cleveland, needing to win to stay in the playoff hunt. I just don't know if the Steelers are going to be able to match that same energy. The Ravens, I don't expect Lamar Jackson to play in this game. I just don't think they should even put him in this game because I think the chances of you making the playoffs are so slim. I just don't think it's worth it. And then on top of that, I don't know, man. I just don't. I think Tyler Huntley is probably serviceable enough to get you this victory, or at least play a competitive game to the point where you could win this game. In terms of the matchups, I feel like Baltimore's defense is certainly beat up in the secondary, and Ben, if he's having a good day, could potentially take advantage of that, and the Steelers certainly have one-on-one advantages on the outside, but Ben has just been so inconsistent and inaccurate, it's kind of hard to rely on him to consistently throw for a lot of yards. Baltimore has been good versus the run most of the season, and that's probably going to be tough for Najee Harris to have a huge game here, but he played really well versus Cleveland. On the flip side, I think Pittsburgh's defense will have similar success. I think they definitely got a huge advantage up front. Baltimore running the ball hasn't been super impressive to me. I think they've struggled versus mostly everybody, and I know that's kind of against their reputation, but it has been true. Tyler Huntley's a gamer though, and he'll try to make some plays down the field. I've been impressed with Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews. I think those guys are playing really well on the outside for the Ravens. Overall, it's just tough for me to see the Steelers beating the Ravens twice in one season, especially coming off of a very emotional Monday night game. So I'm going to take the Ravens, but I do think it's going to be pretty competitive. I'm going to say 23-20. I'd probably side with taking the points with the Steelers, but I don't know if I'll be betting on this game just because I don't know where each team's head's at in terms of the motivation to win the game. Week 18 is very tough. Any week that ends a season is really tough. All right, next up. We've got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland is -6 in this game, and you might be looking at this spread like, what in the blue? Why is Cleveland favored by 6 points in this football game between two teams from Ohio, and one of them's in the playoffs and one of them is not, and the one not in the playoffs is favored? Well, that is because Joe Burrow is not going to be playing in this game. That is because the Bengals are likely to sit many of their top players in this game. The Browns, on the other hand, will have an upgrade at quarterback because Baker Mayfield is not playing and Case Keenum is. So, in my opinion, that is a boost for the Browns because Baker Mayfield has been absolutely horrific. He has been a dumpster fire, a trash can, a garbaggio. And then we've got two sides on defense. I think Cleveland is slightly stronger on defense than Cincinnati is. I'm not sure, again, in terms of the starters. Cleveland obviously probably will have more talent out there than Cincinnati. But I would say this. I think that there are, because Cleveland is out, I think there's also definitely incentive for the Browns to sit players that are like kind of hurt, right? So if Myles Garrett has anything that's ailing him or hurting him, he probably should just not play. Things like that. So the upgrade at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns has me saying that the Cleveland Browns will win versus a team that does not have many of their starters in the game. So I'm going to say no Joe Burrow. That's a significant decline. Like going from Joe Burrow to Brandon Allen or whoever is going to be quarterback, that is a huge difference. So it's like a different team. So I'm going to take the Browns 24-13 in this game. But if Cincinnati won, would I be surprised? Probably not. I just feel like without Burrow, they're not winning anything, to be honest with you. They probably lose to every team in the NFL. All right. Next, the Washington football team at the New York Giants. You see my cup? Now do it. All right. We've got the Giants. We've got the Washington football team. Bono, I got my shirt on for you. All right. Washington and the New York G-Men. Washington is favored by 7. This is one of the very minimal games. There's only 2 that mean absolutely nothing. And this is one of them. So I'm going to keep this short and simple. Joe Judge is a clown. That being said, I will take the Washington football team 27-10. Washington has a better coaching staff. They've got the better quarterback. They've got probably the more competent offensive line. Overall, the Giants have a defense that tries for the first couple of series and then ultimately falls apart because they realize they have the worst quarterback in NFL history, Mike Glennon, who literally had an efficiency lower than Durkant's grades. So I've got Washington winning, and I guess I'll take them to cover, but who cares? Don't bet on this game. Next, we've got another game that absolutely does not matter. The Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. Very disappointing that the Vikings in the last week of the season are playing for absolutely nothing. Minnesota minus 3.5 here. Chicago, Matt Nagy could be on his way out. I guess for both of these coaches, there's reason to fight and win this game because at the end of the day, they can look and say what their record was if they win the game and be like, oh, look, we got this record with what we had this year, blah, 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 and play the politics of the NFL. But in my opinion, both coaches should be out the door, gonzo, fired, see you later. I'm going to take the more talented team. I will take Minnesota 31-20 as long as Kirk Cousins is playing. And let me tell you, when Kirk Cousins plays in meaningless games, he turns into Peyton Manning in 2004. So I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings 31-20, and Kirk Cousins will probably be the best player that is on any team this week. Next, the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans. The Titans are favored by 10.5 in this game. The Titans need this game. They need to win this game to secure the number 1 seed in the AFC. So they'll come out and they'll play hard and they'll try to win this game. They have the opportunity in front of them. I think if they have to go and play as the non-number 1 seed, it obviously significantly declines their opportunity to get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. If they get the number 1 seed, Tennessee has a legitimate chance to get to the Super Bowl. I think it matters that much for them. I know that the home field isn't a huge factor, but just the factor that they don't have to play in the first game, they can get healthier through the bye week. I think that is a big factor. For the Houston Texans, they absolutely positively suck. There is no reason for me to pick them here. I like Davis Mills, I think, more than a lot of other people do. I respect what he's done, what he's been able to do with limited talent. But I will say this, the Texans beat them. The Texans beat them the first game. I think that gives motivation for the Titans to come out and lay a smack-a-down on the Houston Texans. And I believe that is probably what's going to happen. I'm going to go 33-17 here. I just haven't seen enough from the Texans as of late. I feel like they've been having a lot of issues with overall just players not being able to suit up for them, piling up the injuries, and just overall motivation at this point in the season for a team that just stinks. I think it's better off, the Texans are better off to just straight up lose this game. And the Titans actually need this game. So I think there's just a huge shift in terms of motivation. I don't see the Titans slipping here. I don't see the Texans being able to match their level of motivation like they were earlier in the year. So I'm going to take the Titans comfortably. Next, the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jags. Now, Jacksonville last week was downright horrendous. I mean, they were a disgrace to humankind. They were horrific. Now, they were missing a few players, a lot of them being out due to the word that I will not say because YouTube will probably get after me and not rank my video. So I'm not going to say it, but Jacksonville had a lot of players out and they're already bad. So New England smacked them around to the tune of 50-10. Now, I wouldn't expect a team to lose 50-10 2 weeks in a row. I also just generally think Carson Wentz is incapable of scoring 50 points on okay, guys, if you just had a field with no defense and you just asked Carson Wentz to throw, I think, honestly, he couldn't score 50 points. So for that matter, I will take the Colts both ways. It's a huge number, but I don't care. Jacksonville is horrendous. I'm going to take the Colts. The fact that they lost last week, I think, lends me to believe that they're coming out hard and they're going to try to beat the absolute piss out of this football team. But I'm going to say 38-14. I don't think Carson Wentz can score versus air. So 38-14 is my score. I will say this. If you're hoping for any sliver of hope out there, the Colts have not beat the Jags in Jacksonville since 2014, which is absolutely unbelievable considering how horrible Jacksonville has been. But this time, Jacksonville has never been worse. They have never been worse. And I was listening to a podcast earlier today. There are significant people saying that there might be some significant flaws in Trevor Lawrence, which is also having some coaches reconsider whether they want to coach there, which I think is interesting. A little tidbit that I found. But anyways, we're going with the Colts, 38-14. Next, I just put Green Bay minus because I couldn't find the spread, and I know Green Bay is going to be favored, whether it is Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love me more. The Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. From what I've heard, Aaron Rodgers is going to play, and that's all I need to know. Okay? The Packers rarely lose to the Lions. Rodgers rarely loses to the Lions. He rather never really plays a bad game versus the Lions, to be honest with you. I think the Packers pretty comfortably win this game, but there's this thing about the Packers where they're very nonchalant in these type of situations. So I feel like the Lions, because they just, for whatever reason, the Lions, like, don't understand the fact that they could lose and get a higher draft pick. Like, the Lions are still trying to win games. I think they don't know that they're eliminated. So the Lions are still going to try to fight and be in this game. I'm going to take the Packers both ways, whatever the spread is, I don't care. I'm going to say Green Bay 31-20 because I think the Lions just find a way to continue to fight in these games. But the Packers will have enough of a comfortable lead for most of the game to kind of play around with their food, so to speak. Because that's just what the Packers do. They like to play around with their food. All right. Next game. The New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. I will give you a little piece of info. When the spread came out and I saw it was -17, I took the New York Jets +17. I did. Now, somebody's saying that Rodgers is not going to play. Okay. Maybe he doesn't, but what I saw was that Aaron Rodgers says he wants to end the season on a high note. So I just took that as Aaron Rodgers is playing. There's no official word, but I took that piece of information as he was going to play. Regardless, it doesn't really matter to me. Whatever. They're getting the number 1 seed. Who cares? Okay. But anyways, in this game, I took the Jets +17. So you kind of know where my head is at in terms of this game. I think the Jets, I was impressed by Zach Wilson last week. I thought he played really well. Braxton Berrios, they've found a slot receiver in him. I think, I wish he was on New England, quite frankly. And the Jets are continuing to fight. They're continuing to fight. I don't know who's available for them at this point in the week, but I do think the Jets are going to be competitive in this game. There could be more bad weather in this game, which has affected the Bills' offense pretty severely. And every game they've played in bad weather, they have not played well. But I like the Jets to be competitive here. I think that it's going to be probably like a 2-score game, but I just thought 3 scores was too much. I thought that was too many points. I think the Bills and the Jets are pretty close for 3 quarters, and then the Bills kind of pull away at the end and win comfortably at the end to confirm that they are AFC East champs. This game does matter for the Bills because if they lose, they probably lose the AFC East to New England, so they need to come out and play hard to win. If they win, then they officially get a home game in wild card round, and they officially win the AFC East. My score for the game is 27-20. I think the Jets actually kind of stick around in the game, and I like what their offense has been doing. Again, I'm not aware of what the weather entirely is going to be. I'm not aware of all the injuries and things like that. But yeah, the Jets recently, not just versus Tampa Bay, but like the last 3-ish type of weeks, they've been a lot better overall from an offensive standpoint. And that's what I think is going to allow them to hang around in this game. We've got a report in the chat that it might snow, which I think would probably favor Buffalo. Although, like I said, Buffalo has not been as good in those elements. But I will say that at least Buffalo has experience in those elements. I'm not quite sure if the Jets do, and especially their young roster does. But anyways, I would side with the Jets with the points, but I'll take the Bills to win the game for sure. I just think there's too much at stake for them to lose. Okay. The New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this could be, and this will be, I'm not going to play around with you guys. I am taking the Atlanta Falcons to win the game. Straight up. Now, this game matters a lot for the Saints. I think the Saints obviously are going to come out hard. I just don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. I don't think the Saints have enough offensively. Their quarterback situation is horrible. And they've got no receivers. So ultimately, yes, the Saints defense is pretty good, but like the Atlanta Falcons already beat them. The Atlanta Falcons are getting 4.5. I think that's too many points. Atlanta's not a bad team. They easily could have beat Buffalo last week. Their defense plays hard. A.J. Terrell, underrated stud. Deion Jones, stud. I believe Aluakon, or however you say his name, is leading the NFL in tackles right now. Could be wrong about that one, but I think he is. Offensively, Matt Ryan, solid. Right, he's played this defense very many times. He's played this coordinator a lot of times. Cordero Patterson seemed to be a matchup issue for them in the last game. Hopefully Kyle Pitts plays. I think that's obviously a big deal for them. But I think Atlanta could easily win this game. I think the Saints are, unless they're playing Tampa Bay, I don't think the Saints are just that good of a team. I don't think they're good enough to warrant 4.5 points versus a team that they lost to in their division. Even though this is a must-win game for the Saints, Atlanta in these type of games would love to play spoiler, and they're very healthy. So I think Atlanta comes out and actually pulls off the upset. I'm going to go with 17-13 Atlanta. I think this spread should be like, 2.5, maybe 3 at the most. I think 4.5 is a lot of points in this type of game that is very likely to be low scoring. Now, to those people out there, the Saints can make the playoffs, and that's why I'm kind of going through this whole soliloquy, because a lot of people are going to pick the Saints blindly because they can make the playoffs. But we see every year that there are like 2 or 3 games. There's probably about 2 every final week of the season where we get an unexpected result that shifts the playoffs. This, I think, will be one of them. The Saints, if the 49ers lose to the Rams and the Saints win, the Saints are in, right? But if the Saints lose, they're out. So that would shift the ultimate standings of the playoffs. Okay. Next, we've got the Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bruce Arians has always been a coach that does not really rest his players. He usually plays everybody in the last week of the season and usually wants them to have some momentum entering the playoffs. Tom Brady is kind of used to that being under Bill Belichick. And I think that the Bucs have dominated the Panthers the last 2 seasons under Tom Brady's leadership and quarterback play. I think that probably continues here. Tampa Bay also has a reason to play hard, I would say, because they have the opportunity to get the 2 seed. If the Rams lose to the Niners, which is very possible, that the Bucs would lose or move up to the 2 seed, and they also probably want to play hard just because they played so poorly last week and because they have so many offensive players that are going to be playing bigger roles than they expected entering the playoffs. Tom Brady probably wants to build some chemistry with his playmakers like Grayson and Perryman and company. So I think there's reason for the Bucs to at least play a hard 3 quarters. And we'll see what the availability is of the Bucs defensive players. I would assume that they're going to just let Shaq and David and those guys rest. So it's probably going to be mostly the same guys that played last week. But I thought Tom kind of built some momentum and some synergy with his weapons at the end of that game last week. And I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with a really, really good game offensively, even though this is a pretty good defense. So I'm going to say that the Bucs win 31-17 in this game. I just don't think the Panthers offensively are doing enough, even versus a lackluster defense of the Bucs right now that is missing a lot of their best players. I just think that the Bucs and Tom Brady, he wants to go out on a high note entering the playoffs. I think they will. So I'm going to go 31-17, Tampa to cover the game. It gives me confidence that the Bucs have been very good facing this Carolina team, and I think that's what happens in this game. All right. We got a super chat earlier, so I want to check it out. Yellow Car with the $5. Thank you. Says, should seasons last 6 games be division games? League-wide bye week in Week 12, then the last 6 games solely divisional opponents starting Thanksgiving Day. Thank you for the super chat, Yellow Car, and thank you, Bodo, as well, who super chatted me earlier. I would say no. I just think it's not entertaining enough. I think I would get bored if the last 6 games were all division games. And I do like to see those rivalries at the beginning of the year as well. Preferably, I like division games to be one at the beginning, one at the end of the year. I like that. I don't really like to see the whole, like New England and Buffalo was this year, where it's like one game and then 2 weeks later they play again. Or even Tampa Bay and Carolina, where it was like 2 weeks ago they played Carolina and now they're playing Carolina again. I don't really like that. I prefer like one at the beginning, one at the end, like New England, Miami has been. One at the very beginning, one at the very end. That's how I prefer it. And honestly, I think the NFL wouldn't be into that just because I think it's too like lackluster of a schedule. I think they want some more like cross-divisional interconference battles. Like I think they want to see the marquee Josh Allen, Tom Brady game in a week 14. I think they want to see what was a game a couple weeks ago? Like they want to see these big games that are between, let's say, big quarterbacks or big teams or potential Super Bowl previews. They want to see those games at the end of the year. And I personally do as well. So personally, I disagree with that. I don't think that should be the way that they go. I do think there's possibility that they open it up to 2 buys moving forward, though. I think that could be something that happens. All right. Where were we? Okay. The San Francisco 49ers at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are favored by 4.5. Now, just through my own analysis, I feel like Trey Lance will be the quarterback for the Niners in this game. I don't think it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy enough to start. So for that, I think it will be Trey Lance. I do. Do I think that's a good thing for the Niners? I think it's a good and a bad thing. I think the Niners, being that this is a divisional game and they played the first game with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think having a different quarterback that the other team has not studied is a good thing. And there's things that you can throw at the defense with Lance that you weren't able to throw at the defense with Garoppolo. So I think that is really, really interesting because being that they played once, being that the Rams got dominated once already, but now they're going to have to prepare for something totally different on top of the stuff that already gave them issues. That is fascinating, and I want to see how that plays a role in this game. But it's negative because I think Trey Lance is a worse quarterback. I think he's a less efficient quarterback. I think he holds on to the ball longer. I just think in the general passing game, drop back passing game, he is worse. And that's my opinion. But I do think that it opens up more of the field. It stresses more of the field. I feel like Lance can push the ball down the field better. And that's something that really has hindered Kyle's offense with Garoppolo because, quite honestly, Garoppolo is a guy that, I don't know what just happened with my phone, but it just buzzed like crazy. I'm not sure if you guys just heard that. With Garoppolo, he's all about the middle of the field, and he just simply doesn't have the deep ball or the arm strength to stress the sidelines or the deep parts of the field, which is hurt the Kyle overall offense. But with Trey Lance, he's not as accurate. He's not as consistent. His release isn't as good, but at least he gives you that proponent of pushing the ball down the field. Now, in terms of my score and my prediction, I've got the Rams. And the reason I've got the Rams is because I believe it will be Trey Lance. I just don't have enough confidence in Trey Lance in a massive game for them to be able to win. And I understand that Kyle's kind of owned McVay and all that stuff. And I love the Niners. I hope they win this game, quite frankly. But I just can't trust the quarterback. So that's why I'm going to be staying away from this game entirely. If I were to bet either side with the points, I would take the 49ers, and that will be my side that I take. But I just don't think I can bet on it just because if Trey Lance is the quarterback, I just don't know what the Niners are going to be. We saw them beat the Texans, but that's not enough evidence for me to really rely on. And with the Rams, I think they've played much better defense as of late. I think they've played good in the running game. They've been able to run the ball. Sony Michel's been really impressive. And yes, Stafford struggled, which I could see happening again. I just don't know if I can rely on a rookie in this huge spot for them to win. That's just my opinion on it. So I'm going to side with the team that's been better all year and more consistent, even though the Niners have kind of dominated the rivalry, if that makes sense. So, Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals are favored by 6.5 points. I think this is too many points, honestly. I do think this is too many points because this is an NFC West game, and you guys kind of know my logic. I think that almost every game in the NFC West should be a spread of like 3, to be quite honest with you. I think Seattle has looked pretty good offensively as of late, and I know they haven't played great competition, but I think they've been a little bit better, and Russell Wilson's been a little bit better, and I think this is just a weird thing about Seattle, but they just never give up. Like, under Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, this team just never backs down, no matter what it is, like, no matter the obstacles, no matter the week, no matter what it matters for. Like, Seattle's gonna try. They're gonna try to win. It's just the way Seattle is. So I have really no issues with, like, thinking about Seattle just laying an egg here. I think they're gonna come to try to win this game and try to win and leave this season on a high note. So with Arizona, I like the way Arizona played last week. I think they played very good defense on Dallas. I thought they did a good job of getting after Dak, forcing him to be uncomfortable. Did a good job versus the run game. They have another challenge here versus a Seattle team with Rashad Penny, who's been going off consistently. And obviously covering guys like DK Metcalf is not going to be easy. Russell Wilson is tough to deal with. I think they can maybe have a similar type game plan at attacking Russ like they did Dak. But you've also got to deal with, Russ getting outside the pocket and making plays that way more so than Dak does. But they've got a challenge here. I think this is a good team to go up against in the last week of the season. Similar to New England, where I think New England has a tough challenge with Miami, where it's going to get them ready for the playoffs. I think the same thing can be said about Arizona with Seattle. Because I think Seattle does give a couple of things that can be challenging, and they've got a Hall of Fame quarterback. They've got a really good running game right now. They've got some challenging receivers. They've got some leaders on defense. So I think that Arizona is going to have a tough game on their hands. But this game really doesn't matter too much for Arizona other than the fact that they could go in with a win to the playoffs. I think pretty much they could try to win the division. If the Rams lose, they could try to... if the Rams lose, then the Cardinals win, and I think they could win the division. But if the Rams win, the Cardinals game doesn't really matter ultimately, because the Rams would win the division and the Cardinals would still be the 5th seed, really, no matter if they lose or win. So this is maybe one that if you want to bet on it, you might want to live bet. But I do think Seattle plus 6.5 isn't a bad side to go with, depending on the availability of some of their players. But my score for this one is a tight football game. I'm going to go 27-24 Seattle. I think the slight edge to Arizona because I like their defense more. I like the way that Kyler played last week. I like that they're involving some different type of players in very specific ways. I do want to give credit to Cliff in that way. I think they do a good job of involving some of these guys like Wesley, and that little wide receiver, whoever that guy was, who was running reverses, not Rondell Moore, but the other guy. And the offensive line for Arizona also played very well, and I do think Kyler should have a lot of time to distribute the football in this game. So I think Arizona's the better team. I think ultimately at home in a game that does sort of matter, I think they do find a way to win, but I do think Seattle's going to make it tough on them. And the final game, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. This is the biggest game of the week by far, really. This is the one game where it's like a win and you're in sort of situation. Every other game is more for seeding purposes, but this game is like do or die. You win this game, you're in the playoffs. You lose this game, you're out of the playoffs. When I look at this game, I love what the Raiders have been able to do. I love that the Raiders won for Madden. I love that the Raiders have fought through adversity. And I would absolutely love to see the Raiders make the playoffs. From what all they've been through, to be able to make the playoffs would be a spectacular feat. And I would love to see that for Derek Carr and company. But I do think the Chargers are the better team. I do think the Chargers are the better team. I think that they should win this game. I think that they should cover this game. My prediction is going to be 27-20. I think it's going to be to stop Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert is just too good. He's too talented. He's got a good group of weapons, but I just don't think the Raiders have enough in the secondary to match up with these guys. And yes, the Raiders, like I said last week, I told you that the Raiders' run defense got a lot better. I told you that the Raiders would have a chance versus the Colts, and I picked them to win, and everybody laughed at me. But I just don't think this is their week. You know, recalling that first matchup, I thought the Chargers kind of handled the Raiders. I thought that they were the superior team in that game. I'm not sure the availability of Darren Waller in this game. You would hope he could play in this win or you're out sort of situation. Win and you're in, win or lose and you're out sort of situation. I think this is going to be very entertaining. I think this is going to go down to the wire. This is just two teams that always play close games. But I just think Herbert is the difference. Herbert is the difference. And I'm not sure if the Raiders can dominate the game enough at the line of scrimmage on offense. Like, they've been better running the ball as of late, but their weakness offensively all year has been running the ball. And I just don't know if they have that significant advantage on the Chargers to be able to like run down the Chargers' throat. I think this is going to have to come down to Derek Carr, and I just think he has less of a supporting cast than Justin Herbert does. I just think the Chargers have also been the more consistent team this season. So I'm going to take the Chargers 27-20 to make the playoffs. I do think that the Chargers would also be the more entertaining team to make the playoffs because I think ultimately they would have a better chance of beating some of the playoff teams. I think the Raiders would be a better story, but I just don't think the Raiders have what it takes, the talent, what it takes to be a threat in the playoffs ultimately, as much as I like them. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers, guys, and I do think that they cover. This is going to be a really fun game, and I hope that it's a high-scoring shootout. Last drive, last score wins. I really do. I want to see Derek Carr and Justin Herbert go toe-to-toe back and forth. That would be very entertaining. But the coin said, you know, I brought up the coin. The coin said that the Raiders would lose. And how can I deny the coin at this point? The coin has predicted 99% of the Raiders' outcomes this year. And the coin, if you guys don't know the coin, look it up. The Raiders coin, it has literally predicted every single game outside of the Washington game. So I cannot deny the unbelievable ability of this coin to predict the Raiders' outcomes. And it said that the Raiders would lose. So on that note, that's what I'm going to go with. I am going to take the Chargers. All right, 27-20. The coin, bro. The coin. I'm going to look this up for you guys. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. The Raiders in a teaser is interesting. I don't disagree with that. Let me look this up for you guys. Yeah, Bodo. Bro, the coin is unbelievable. Look at this thing. Hold on. Hold on, you guys. Look at the coin, bro. Look at the coin. It's predicted every game. The coin says a loss. If the coin says a loss, then that is what must happen. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to this live stream and my Week 18 NFL picks. If you enjoyed, don't forget to Gronk spike the like button and subscribe for more BLV just like this. It's Mitch. Love you all. Playoffs. I'm telling you guys, if you haven't subscribed, if you're just one of those casual viewers that comes and goes, the playoffs are a different level here on the channel. So do subscribe, do stay tuned, and do Gronk spike that notification bell for every damn upload. I'm up in my game in 2022. If you thought I was good in 2019, 2017, 2020, 2021, 2022 is a different type of level. We're not messing around no more. This is big time. I am going out for 2022. This is the breakout year of the BLV. So I hope you guys stay tuned. It's Mitch. Peace. Oh, I do got to answer yellow card before I go. That was such a good piece, though. You messed it up, bro. You messed it up. Says, odds of Wilson going to the Browns or the Steelers? But I got to answer my super chats because that's a promise. Odds of Wilson going to the Browns or the Steelers? Pretty high, I would say. The Browns wanted him like a few years ago. I would say those odds are above 30%, I would say. Somewhere around there. I don't know. I'm not a math whiz. Is there another one that I missed? If Jimmy G wins a playoff game, is he staying in San Francisco? Regardless of whether he wins a playoff game or not, no. I think unless he wins the Super Bowl, he will be gone. Peace, guys.